Okay, so today I'm going to do a little talk on posing and presentation, which is very, very important. And I've seen the most amazing physiques, and they've gone on stage and basically lost because they didn't present their physique in the way that they should have done. So it's very, very important. I think what people do, and this is a mistake that I certainly made at the beginning, was concentrating on getting in shape, concentrating on getting ready for the show. And then last week, I'd normally take a week off work, and then I was sort of like practicing my posing, but I found that it just was not long enough. And another reason is I really was feeling tired that last week and I just sort of kept putting it off. And then when I did the show, I would get the DVD, look back, and really my posing was letting me down. So many people don't order the DVD when they do a show, and I can't understand it because I think it's very important to look at that because you can analyse it and study it and look at it from the outside and look at yourself and see where you're going wrong. So I looked at my poses and I thought that's no good, that's no good. Kept seeing all the flaws. So what I'd do is I'd practice. Obviously, in the next show that I'd do, found that it was slightly better, slightly better. It's very difficult to get the posing spot on. Very difficult indeed. And also, I think the biggest mistake people make is that they will look at a pro bodybuilder and then they will copy that. But the problem with that is that you've got to do the right poses that complement your physique. So for instance, it's no good doing like this, like Lee Priest does, if you've got no forearms. The idea of good posing is to sort of like push your strengths and sort of hide the weaknesses, and everyone does have weaknesses to a degree. So in posing, you've got to know what are your strengths and you've got to push them, and when you've got weaknesses, you've got to sort of like, in a way, sort of like hide them, and you've got to know how to present your physique. So yes, I looked at loads of pro bodybuilders, loads of different poses, and every bodybuilder has their sort of signature poses that are meant suit them, and so you've got to identify which ones are going to be good for you. So my favourite poses were also always most muscular side chest front poses, and I understood that the rear poses weren't quite so good. So the best way was when I was doing the shows, I would go into the front poses very, very quickly, so I'd be in them poses for longer. And when I was doing like rear lat spread and rear double bicep, because it was a little bit weaker, I would sort of like hold back a little bit and be one of the last to go into the pose. So there's little things like that you can do. But you don't want to make it obviously too obvious. So I think some of the biggest mistakes people make is, like I said, they don't leave long enough. I would say definitely start posing right from the beginning of the prep. In fact, practice your posing all year round because it does harden you up for sure. And I think that if you do a little bit of posing between sets and that, it's always good. And also, it's very, very tiring. People don't realise what it takes out of you, doing poses. I don't know whether any of you have done a few rounds of posing. You're absolutely shattered. And where you're squeezing and posing and that, it's hard work. And I used to sort of like stand in the sunbed and tense my legs, because another thing about it is you may be a very good poser, but are you stage fit? Because what I mean by that was sometimes, I feel like my posing was good in that, but I hadn't practiced enough. So I used to get on stage, and where I was flexing my legs for so long, I was getting cramp constantly. So I found that, I used to build it up. I'd stand there sort of like tensing and flexing my legs for say like 30 seconds, and then I'd build it up to a minute, and then I'd build it up for 2 minutes. So basically I could stand there 5 minutes flexing the legs hard without getting cramp and it not being a problem. Now you try that and it's not easy, so it's something you have to build up. So sometimes you can be on stage for a long period of time, and a lot of people, what they do is they're flexing, but then when they go back they don't flex anymore. I think that from the second you go on stage, you want to be always in a flexed position. Some people just stand there all slouched and relaxed and that, you never know when them judges are going to be looking at you. So I always found that I always liked to keep my legs tight even when I was not being called out. So yes, and also the coaches, are doing like posing now. It's something that wasn't really available years ago, but now you've got all these people that are now coaching and doing posing lessons, which has become very popular. and that's very, very good. I still think that on one would be better. I think when you've got big groups, it can be quite difficult. I think, and you know, but they're very, very good. And there's some good people out there now, so you know, just be careful you don't see someone who's again not very good. A bit like the show prep gurus, you've got to be careful who you see. But yes, I would say definitely start posing from the beginning. Build it up so you're able to stand for long periods of time in flexed positions. And also, you need to learn what are your best poses and what are your not so good poses. And you've got to learn to be able to hide them poses and also flaunt the good ones. You know, another thing is, you know, about posing is, judges want, obviously, you to be standing a certain way. And you see it all the time in shows where, you know, they ask you to go, like, to the side, and people are constantly, like, lifting their leg up and twisting hard and that, you know. So, you know, you don't want to get caught out, you know, overdoing that. You've got to sort of, like, you know, subtly do it, obviously, because what you're trying to do from the side is obviously what they want to do is they want you standing directly to the side, but what you're doing is you're just twisting slightly to give the you know, appearance of you looking a little bit more thickness, you know. So there's things that you can do just to sort of, like, you know, like from the rear, if you're showing the hamstring, normally you point the knee out, makes the leg look a little bit wider. You know, just little things like that you can do, but you don't want to overdo it, because otherwise you're going to keep getting called by the judges to stop, and that could go against you. So yeah, there's a lot to do with posing, and certainly practice for sure. You can't ever practice posing enough, and that's something that I learned the hard way. There was times when I come off stage absolutely gasping for air, because, you know, where I was tense and I just wasn't used to doing it for long periods of time. And also when you get on stage, it's very, very hot. And because obviously you're under a bit of pressure, you know, sometimes you do things and you look back, you think, why was I doing that? You know, so I see a lot of people do shows, they don't order the DVD. I'd always suggest always order the DVD and get pictures. DVDs are better because pictures, you know, don't really show the true, you know, that you're better off seeing yourself move, going in between poses, etc., and that, rather than pictures. You know, like I said before, when you see pictures, you could be caught just going into the pose and not look so good. So you want to make sure you get the DVD and analyse it, and keep on practicing. And you know, you'll do that and things will be a lot better. There's so many things that you need to, you know, draw attention to when it comes to doing a show. You know, you haven't got just you posing. You know, you've got to sort your tan out. A tan is another thing that I'm going to talk about, because I had serious problems with my tan. I just could not get a good tan. I used to go green. It would start running off me and that, you know. So, you know, these things all matter, because you know, if it's very, very close, it could be down to something like the tan. It could be down to, you know, just down to posing. Like I said, I've seen a friend of mine who I used to train with, who in some cases I thought, you know what, I don't think he's won this, because his posing was so good. He used to turn it around, and the other guy wasn't so good. In actual fact, he ended up winning. When they first came out on stage, I thought, you know what, he's come second. So it just shows you, with good posing, and if you present yourself in the right manner, it definitely can make a difference. So practice your posing right from the beginning. If you need a coach, then get a coach. Don't look at pro bodybuilders and start doing the poses that they're doing thinking that's going to look good for you, because it might not necessarily, it won't. And identify what your weakness is and what your strengths, and yeah, everything will be fine. So good luck with that, and we'll speak soon.